In the off chance that you're watching this video without having read or seen any of Beastars, here are my quick thoughts on the show. Beastars has only released 5 episodes at the time that I'm writing this script, but it has already propelled itself into my top 30 favorite anime of all time, and that is extremely rare. From the first second, Beastars has exceptionally beautiful storyboarding and directing, with expressive animation and an innovative and creative use of fluid camera work and abstract imagery. The sound design is totally great, with terrific voice acting across the board and a musical score that accentuates the tone and emotional context of the scenes to the nth degree. It has fantastic character work so far, establishing characterization swiftly and efficiently for each of the major characters, as well as their deeper thoughts and motivations. It takes place in a great setting, in a world full of anthropomorphic animals, herbivores and carnivores, at Shirato Academy, a school full of all kinds of these animals. Certain things are expected of certain people because of who they are. Carnivores frequently experience bloodlust that they must try to quell and are expected to be rough brutes due to their predatory nature and advanced musculature, but the lot of them are also unfairly ostracized and blamed as an entity when there are attacks on students, mainly due to fear and convenience. Herbivores are expected to be softer and more submissive for the most part, but even the most authoritative and ambitious ones may be left with extra hurdles in their lives due to their fragile bodies. Essentially, society has pigeonholed these characters into set roles due to their blood, and while Shirato is not nearly as discriminatory and stifling as it could be, having a number of clubs and classes where different types of animals coexist and cooperate, animals are still generally given a limited leash for true expression if that expression reaches beyond the boundaries of what's expected of them. Not only this, but this sort of society that depends and leans on availability heuristics to make judgments of others perpetuates assumptive thinking and promotes an environment full of individuals that, by and large, don't really try to get to know each other deep down and instead lazily cling to gossip and easy stereotyping. So far, the story has used all of this to its great advantage to milk every last bit of intrigue and quality out of the premise, for the first few episodes at least, and I can imagine that this is only the tip of the iceberg, so if you're on the fence with this one, then just take the plunge and check it out. Now, while all of the elements I mentioned are terrific parts of a whole, what I love most about the story is how they all work in seamless harmony and coalesce in these big, impactful, and rich story beats for the cast, subtle or otherwise. Haru is a terrific and sympathetic example of the sort of broken byproduct of a person that a society like this can lead to, but more pertinent to the topic at hand here are the characters of Bill, Legoshi, and Louis, all of whom are part of the drama club. And note that while I'm about to talk about these characters, their big scene, the themes involved, and why it was all so good, this is purely my interpretation and the views of someone who hasn't read the manga post-anime material. As such, I could easily end up being incorrect or incomplete with my interpretation, so file this video under speculative analysis or a quasi-reaction video rather than most of my usual stuff. Bill is a relatively simple character, but he fulfills a very important role. He's a pretty outgoing and outwardly confident tiger, appearing to be secure and happy. But past his outer layer, Bill has some issues. He is not ashamed of being a carnivore, and he is very proud, but he is secretly insecure, not comfortable with the herbivores being given the limelight and the carnivores being shoved to the side, considered to be deviant brutes of sorts by society. He wants a better reputation for his brethren, and he wants to show everyone that carnivores deserve to be celebrated too. On the other hand, Louis is a phenomenal character, and a personification of how adeptly the story handles its themes. As the lead actor for the club, he is adored by the masses at Shirato and admired by all for his charisma, acting prowess, and skill. Like Bill, he appears to be confident and secure, but actually harbors deep-seated problems. As an herbivore, he feels a need to maintain a high status, to be looked upon as mighty as the carnivores. He may be given the spotlight in the way that no carnivore is, and he may be more popular, but he is still shackled by the limitations of his blood. His body is more frail, he isn't as strong or dynamic, and he injures himself more easily than any carnivore would. Yet, he still perseveres through this, shouldering the burden and wanting himself to be better and stronger than anyone to break through this unfair barrier and become the Beastar. He doesn't want pity, he cannot show weakness, and he must continually succeed. The reasons for this are currently unknown at this point in the anime. It may just be an inferiority complex and bitterness that slowly festered as he went through life, or it may have been something in his backstory that we are as of yet oblivious to. However, the point is that this aspect of his personality dictates the vast majority of his actions. Lastly, Legoshi is the gentlest, kindest soul you're ever likely to meet. It just so happens that he's a carnivorous gray wolf who has to fight his predatory instincts to maintain a sense of internal peace. As someone who tries his best to foster connections and relationships with others, he attempts to stifle his carnivorous features and instincts, trying not to bare his fangs, suppressing his urges, not using his full strength when situations call for it. However, at the end of episode 1, he nearly slips and kills Haru out of instinct, and curses his weakness afterwards, hating these urges of his and doubling down on his efforts to smother them. As a result of these efforts, he is somewhat resented by Louis, being a carnivore with the natural gifts that come with it, yet hesitant to use them. And because he is all too aware of his own mask, this partly helps him to see past the falsely perpetuated fronts that others create. He finds himself able to judge Haru more fairly than anyone is willing to, for example, and he is much more introspective and reflective than nearly anyone at Cherryton, fully willing to question things because he knows that people may not be what they initially seem. Yet, despite these attempts to normalize himself, despite his empathy, and despite his ability to see beyond what is assumed, Legoshi is socially awkward and quite lonely. Even if he has a decent number of friends, he feels at constant odds with himself and hates his carnivorous nature, which puts him in a state of constantly holding himself back and makes him distant. Overall, there is just a great amount of richness in this setting and society. Some of it stated, some of it implied, but all of it feeding into the psychologies of our characters and how they feel about their place in the world. And so thanks to these foundations, there is so much allegorical depth that can be obtained from the performance in the second half of episode 4. After Louis' injury, Bill is cast into the lead role of the play, the character of Adler. He sees this as his chance, his moment to seize glory for all carnivores, to help put them on a glittering pedestal along with the herbivores. So naturally, he is anxious, and resorts to doping to enhance his performance. Beastars' equivalent for doping for carnivores in this scenario just happens to be rabbit blood, and when Legoshi, who is cast to be Bill's replacement, finds this out, he is overcome with a rage. Not just at Bill for doping, which seems to be implied to be a serious crime, but at himself, as he sees his own carnivore side in Bill. This all sets up for a terrific chance at symbolic introspection for the play, during a scene in which Legoshi and Bill are supposed to have a fight. As shown by the little interspersing clips throughout the piece, due to feeling sick and guilty for what he did to Haru, Legoshi goes all out and begins beating Bill to a pulp, partly as a substitute for beating up the part of himself that he hates. Bill, who is representative of all that a carnivore is, and takes pride in that, is Legoshi's surrogate for the part of himself that he views as a darkness that he must reject. So he continuously punches the tiger to make him feel better about himself. It's a brutal and striking form of self-loathing, and Legoshi shows no signs of slowing down, until he stopped. In the rehearsals, and now in the play, Bill consistently made a case to Legoshi that he should embrace and be proud of his carnivore roots. He notes that Legoshi is familiar with the scent of rabbit blood, so he must have experienced it before. And as such, Bill says that Legoshi has no right to take any moral high ground in disgust of the doping. He is just as much of a bloodthirsty predator as Bill, and Bill says that that's okay. He scratches him, makes him bleed, and takes him down a peg to show him that they are the same. And in that moment, Legoshi believes him.
この背中を伝う血はこいつと同じ肉食獣の血。生温かくて無力で悲痛で、俺はいつだってこの血に苦しんできた。
He laments his weakness, but accepts his role here in a mix of simultaneous grief and resignation. That is, until Louis steps in to save Legoshi, both in and outside of the context of the play. He condemns Bill, saying that he sees his true colors. Whether that be for the doping or for his aggressive declarations or both is unclear, but he definitely notes the blood and the sentiment seeps through. Louis then calls Bill an imposter and tells Legoshi that he was in the right, and what I inferenced from this was that he was saying that Bill was wrong in saying that Legoshi was the same as him. This isn't quite a dismissal of Bill's motivations, but it says that these two animals both being carnivores means nothing in terms of who they are as people, and that Legoshi is correct in not resigning himself to being the traditional carnivore. He is correct in fighting to find a place for himself, correct in wanting to be his own person, even if it goes against his animal nature. While it is a bit sad for Bill, Louis supports Legoshi here in more ways than one, and provides him with validation and the confidence to continue being the person he wants to be. He's championing Legoshi's desire to express himself to the fullest. Anger at himself, rage at Bill, frustration at feeling oppressed, searching for himself, shame, guilt, whatever. And while all of this is clearly exposited and obtained with just a little bit of between the lines reading, I'm not sure how much of this sentiment was intended from Louis. It meant a ton for the Grey Wolf both personally and narratively, but Louis is a bit more mysterious. I'd like to think that he came to a realization that maybe Legoshi wasn't weak by trying to withhold himself, and that he had good reason for losing control as he did, even if Louis obviously doesn't know the specifics behind that. I'd like to think that this display helped him think outside the box a little and gain some perspective, even if Louis can't allow himself to stop being irritated that Legoshi isn't taking advantage of all that he has. Or maybe this was just a moment of growth exclusively for Legoshi. Now, I seriously doubt that the story will begin touting the importance of hiding and completely repressing the dark side of ourselves like Legoshi is trying to do, and if I had a bet, I'd say that it'll go something more along the lines of a synthesis of instinct and willpower, one for which Legoshi accepts his carnivore nature as a part of him and learns to ingratiate it within himself into something of a compromise, something more productive that reflects who he is without repressing a fundamental part of him. Maybe he accepts one part of his carnivore instincts and represses another. I don't know. But regardless, I think the key here is that people, and in this case animals, are not resigned and forced to do what is expected of them. They don't have to conform to roles that don't fulfill them. They can be who they want to be, society be damned, and express that wholeheartedly if they so desire. It's an incredibly resonant and relevant message, especially in the context of a setting where these ideas of freedom and our genuine selves are somewhat stifled. These thematics just dance back and forth, tipping one way and the next in the midst of such a grippingly directed and visually beautiful scene, communicating all of this subtextually while putting the emotions and motivations of the characters at the forefront. And the show is able to present this so efficiently and effectively because of such great establishment. It says so much, so richly, within just a few minutes, and all in all, this was one of the very best sequences of anime in 2019. Anyways, I appreciate you all listening to my off-the-cuff thoughts on the series, and I am delighted to have the opportunity to gush about the story. Beastars is absolutely magical so far, and I'm totally loving it. Without spoiling future developments far down the line in the manga, feel free to share any and all thoughts about the series in the comments, and as always, many thanks for watching.